Hello everyone and welcome to Beyond the Black Rims. My name is Mars Girl.
I'm Josh Knight the First.
And thanks for coming back to episode 2 of our seemingly podcast, I guess. Eventually I swear I'm gonna get MP3 versions of these going. It's totally gonna be a thing. I promise.
It's gonna happen.
But for now, YouTube is a perfectly fine place to be putting this, I would think. So, thanks to those of you who have continued to return even past our demos and all our trials and errors and everything.
And especially thanks to everybody who came out this past Sunday during the Super Bowl to not watch the Super Bowl and listen to us voice through Phoenix Wright. It was a fun experience, and as soon as we decide what night is best, we'll go ahead and go through the next case.
Yeah, maybe we'll even link you guys to it in the description below this video once we decide that. So maybe come back to this and see if you can find a link sometime within the next couple of days.
Think about it.
Just maybe think about doing that. You don't have to, but, you could. It was pretty awesome, though. We were doing it for almost 5 hours.
Just about 5 hours, yeah.
And just the two of us voicing every voice in that cast. It's a little extreme.
It gets a little rough after about the 2-hour mark, I would say.
Well, we went through a full 2 cases, and granted, the first case is not
The first case was like an hour.
It was 45 minutes,
45 minutes. And then that last, well, I say last, but it's really the second case. Was that Turnabout Sisters?
Yeah.
That one lasted a while.
The remainder of the time.
Yeah,
the other 4 hours.
Just about. But, since this is the top of the show, we'll go ahead and reintroduce ourselves.
So, again, I am Mars Girl, but my actual name is Kaylin, and again, you might know me from ThatGuyWithTheGlasses.com, and I mostly review animation and video games.
I'm Josh Knight the First. My real name, surprise, is Josh. I mainly talk about Japanese special effects shows called Tokusatsu. Also, I like to talk about superhero things, whether they be movies, television, video games, and some other things that will come up topically.
So yeah, that's again what we're about. If you are just listening to this for the first time, and we'd really like for you guys to get to know us and understand the sort of topics that we will bring about. And to let you guys know the sort of topics we will further be discussing later on within the hour, we're going to be talking about a particular scandal within the very popular super pop group AKB48 that got worldwide attention, and it's just kind of ridiculous.
I'm going to be talking about episode 1 of the latest installment of Power Rangers entitled Power Rangers Megaforce.
And we're going to follow up by both tackling together episode 3 of King of the Nerds. I'd really like for us to talk about some other subjects in the near future, but this is just something that, it's relevant to everybody and relevant to both of us, and I think we can both tackle it.
It's really just the funny thing that we decided to do this not realizing that this show was going to be on at the same time, so it just kind of seems relevant at the moment.
So before we get into those topics, I wanted to do a thing that we've sort of been making a reoccurring thing, where we bring up an issue or perhaps 2 or more later on down the road, but right now it's just one, that perhaps came up in a previous episode of our podcast. And something that came up between last week and this week was that someone following me on Twitter had been listening to the podcast and listened to us comment on King of the Nerds, and suggested that perhaps we came off a bit strong in some ways, saying that we think we are better than other nerds, and really, he and I had quite the good conversation after that, and
admittedly, I didn't get to join in on it, but Kaylin, I believe you did handle it quite well.
Well, I do think that perhaps we could have stated some things a little bit better. We could have been more clear, but at the same time, with a show like King of the Nerds, and I don't want to get too terribly much into this because we're going to talk about King of the Nerds later, it is a reality show. It's going to be twisted in different ways to, in fact, later on we'll even bring up things where we might even say that parts of it are rigged. However, you can't trust a reality show to actually be what that says it is, reality. So it's hard to determine exactly what the personality of these different people really is.
That definitely ties into more or less what we were going off last time. I will personally say I apologize if we sounded like we were being of a higher mindset, like we thought we were better than them. Really what we were coming off is more personality type. Because I think we would both agree there's nothing wrong with liking what you like, it's the manner in which you like it.
Well, yeah, and
certain personality types get attracted to certain properties.
Well, and again, it really has nothing to do with what they like. I don't care if you like Batman, or if you like ponies, or if you like yaoi. Like, you can like any number of those things, or none of those things, or something.
Or
you can like football.
Yeah,
okay?
I was about to say, you could like sports, you could like cooking, you could like any number of other interests. It's the manner in which you choose to display your enthusiasm for such things that might put people off to wanting to talk to you.
So yeah, there's absolutely some personality types that I personally would shy away from. I'm sure what the person was probably getting at was like the way we kind of talked about how we would or would not approach Alana.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's where that probably stemmed from. Well, let me put it this way though. I've had this quote come up on my Facebook wall within this past week, and who did I say it was from?
From Simon Pegg.
Simon Pegg, and I'm paraphrasing this quote, but in a roundabout way, he sort of says that being a geek is very liberating because it basically gives you free license to behave however you want and not have to apologize for it, and basically be able to love something you love so passionately
and so openly
and to a near childish sort of extent. And to an extent, I understand what he's saying and where he's coming from. It is a very liberating sort of a feeling to be able to be like, hey, I can be a certain way among certain people. But one, he's Simon friggin' Pegg, okay?
Yeah.
He's a celebrity, and he can do what he wants whenever he wants. He has free reign and money to do that. And two, I don't believe that 100%.
No, I understand what you mean. Like, I would say in my experience of, especially around conventions,
yeah,
that there are certain
specifically around
cases
anime conventions
where I understand you are very enthusiastic. I say this coming from a cosplayer's perspective. I understand you are very happy to see me in such and such costume. That does not give you the right to run at me full speed and without my permission grab up on me or tackle me, glomp me, and potentially ruin something I've worked very hard on just because you couldn't contain yourself.
It's like, just because you are a fan of particularly nerdy things, it doesn't give you the right to behave like a complete and utter jackass. I really don't think you have free license to automatically be a jackass. I don't know what parents are doing with their
That's
kids.
a whole nother argument right there.
But it's especially a convention sort of a thing. Like, no, you don't get to just randomly, happily tackle a person. It's not okay to just join into a stranger's conversation and then follow them everywhere they go, not knowing anything about them. Or, certain behaviors aren't okay just because you're in Nerd Haven or whatever. These are still people, okay?
Right.
And people have certain social behaviors that you might consider uncomfortable, okay?
Basically, it's the whole how you would want to be treated yourself in that situation. And hopefully that would lend itself to not wanting to invade somebody's personal space.
So that having been said, feel free to like whatever it is you like. I don't even have to like the same thing you like. That's cool, but just don't be crazy. That's what I'm saying. In fact, I think that
crazy within reason, I would say.
I think that totally speaks to what Beyond the Black Rims means.
Yeah.
Is to be able to say, hey, look at all these really sort of niche sort of things that we can be interested in, but we don't have to behave like jackasses. We might, from time to time.
It might come up.
We don't have to.
I might
though.
later on in this show.
Entirely possible. That having been said, we do have some other topics of discussion that we wanted to get through. Again, I wanted to bring up this one particular topic of AKB48. There was a particular member of the group, of which, if you're not familiar with them, AKB being short for Akihabara, the electronic district in Tokyo, very popular for Japan's nerd culture, very well known for it. And it's basically a local band that just sort of exploded and then spawned off other members. There are 48 girls in each one of these bands, and they've got other different branches across Japan. Well, AKB48 is the most popular one, and one particular member of the band, and there's 3 different groups among the band. Team A, Team K, and Team B. Team A, of course, being the most prevalent, and you've graduated through these other training groups. One member, Minami Minegishi, she had this quote-unquote scandal come up over these last couple of weeks, and it really just exploded last week. And supposedly she was dating this particular other J-pop star and actor, what's his name, Alan Shirahama, who, he doesn't look like he's done terribly much to me, though he's in a J-pop group called Generations. I'm not familiar with it. However, he was in this live-action GTO series that came out this past year, so that's interesting. So, they may or may not have been dating for a bit. All we know is that one night she went over there, and then she left his house the next morning, and she was trying to be sneaky about it somewhat. I mean, she was leaving the house seen in a really big baggy coat and a face mask, but they caught her, and
they being
paparazzi. But that's the biggest no-no ever you could possibly have for being a member of AKB48. There's this well-known strict no boyfriends rule. Now this is a 20-year-old woman, okay? And he's 21. These are adults. And
no, he's about 20.
Well, he's a year older than she is. She was born in 1992 and he was born in 1993. I mean,
yeah, but August 1993. So he's barely going to be 20 this year. So he's 19.
All the same, there's not really a big. They're adults.
Well, the thing about it that you have to see is that one, they're part of a talent agency, both of them. Certain talent agencies, just like with certain athletic teams, have strict sets of rules that you sign a contract that you have to abide by these rules, and if you don't, you can be penalized.
Absolutely. It's just that. The only argument I see is that, their agency, they're hey, it's his private life, he can do whatever he wants. However, being a part of a group like AKB48, they specifically feed off of fantasy, in which, if the girls appear to have boyfriends, then it completely ruins this male fantasy, because AKB48 is this sort of group where they're all young and cutesy and adorable, and they look like they're available, and you could possibly get with this very normal
just
girl.
Just to be clear on that, the paparazzi catches her. Her management at AKB48 are upset with her. What are the consequences of this?
You're absolutely right. I didn't even continue. So she's caught by the paparazzi, and then they're very strict on her and harsh on her, and she gets demoted to Team B. And she's just absolutely embarrassed and ashamed, and for her own purposes, she goes and she shaves her head. And then she gets in front of a camera, and, this is all of her own accord. She has this very in-depth, very sad, heartbreaking, absolutely sobbing YouTube video expressing her most sincere apologies for this terrible thing that she's done. The video is now privatized because it sparked such international controversy, and the band organizer, I'm trying to remember his name exactly, it's up here somewhere, Tomonobu Togasaki, he went to Google Plus to clarify this incident and say, oh, she did it of her own accord, and, you know, there have been other girls who have had similar scandals or whatever, and it's like, to me, I just sort of feel like, how heartbreaking is that? Like, what, a lot of these girls are teenagers, some of them as young as 13.
Right.
Like, what teenage girl isn't gonna at least get a crush at some point? And you've got these girls going through super massive, explosive popularity and stardom that they could not have really imagined before. They're not living normal teenage girl lives, but normal teenage girl things are going to happen, like falling in puppy love at the very least.
Right.
And, you know, then they show pictures of this girl with her head shaved, and she's with members of the band, and she's giving peace signs and stuff as if everything's okay, and as of recent, it shows a photo of her in a wig, getting back into things and starting to do routines with her new team and everything, and I'm just thinking to myself, she can't actually be happy. There's just no way she can actually be happy.
Well, the thing about that, coming from a performer aspect, you do what you... There's that old saying, the show must go on. If she's still a part of this organization and she still wants to perform, she would continue to do what she can to get back to Team A, get back to the top. Unfortunately, this event has occurred, and she has, you know, had all this focus thrust upon her negatively. But I would like to see that she gets back on top and that this can all blow over.
Well, there's a far bigger picture that I think is being missed here. And I'm not talking about show business. I'm talking about chauvinism, and I'm talking about this idea of what moe is.
Okay, alright. That's a pretty big topic.
That's a much big, and it's something the Japan Times covered. And it speaks to the idea that, as I was already attempting to bring up, and I feel like it was kind of shoved down, was that there is this mentality that they do not get boyfriends because they're trying to sell a product. And that product is their girls, and the availability of those girls to men of all ages. And it's mostly adult men who will show up to these shows and cheer for these girls and buy gravure-style photo books of them.
Basically swimsuit photo books.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about that, I'm wondering, is that usually in a case like this, you've got two choices. Three choices. They can demote you, they can fire you, or you can choose to what they call graduate, which is basically, you know, we're not gonna fire you, you can choose to quit.
And that has happened, and that's what this leader of the organization has even said. Like, there have been a number of scandals, and we have dealt with them in different ways. Like, he's sitting there saying he's had to run into this situation several times. Like, what do you think is going to happen when you sign up a 13-year-old girl? Eventually, her heartstrings are going to be tugged at, and she's going to want to be with somebody. It's going to happen.
Well, you compare it to pop stars over here, like any number of female singers over here, they date willy-nilly, and I don't see anybody buying any less of their albums or their magazines.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you see
so is that a cultural thing that over there it has to seem that they are available?
Or even
or is that all over?
Take as recently as Beyonce's performance in the Super Bowl, right? Like, here's a far older woman, considerably, especially in comparison to any of the members of AKB48.
Uh-huh.
And she's married, she's had a kid,
right?
And she's up there dancing with almost nothing on, and the crowd is going absolutely nuts, very nearly worshipping her at certain points in the Super Bowl, and people are all over it, completely eating it up. Like, but everybody knows she's married with a child.
Right.
Like, does it really matter? They love her anyway. Love her to pieces.
So the case they're trying to make here is, why does AKB48 still have this rule about dating amongst their members?
It's to the point where obviously she was so ashamed that she just broke down in front of the whole world, shaved her head. Like, that's a very traditional, very steeped in Japanese culture sort of a thing to do, is like, you are so ashamed that you shaved your head so that everybody can know you did something terrible. Absolutely terrible, and you feel bad, and you should be ashamed of yourself for being 20 years old and having a boyfriend?
Wait, she was 20? I thought she was like 18.
No, she's 20.
Oh, then what the heck? No, let her date.
That's what I said at the top of this. I said she's 20 and he
that
was
must have slipped me. No, that's freaking nuts. Let her date. You shouldn't feel bad about that, especially if you're of consenting age just about over there, and because over here in America it's 21 to do most things and be considered an adult, 18 for some things, 21 for other things. Over in Japan it's all pretty much 20. So, she's just right there on the cusp of it. It's not like, this is certainly, I mean, I know I could get in trouble saying that, it's certainly not statutory rape we're talking about, it was a date.
Maybe. I mean, she stayed overnight.
Well, okay, but
who
even then,
cares what happened? It's not like there was a telephoto lens in that house. We don't know what happened.
I get that. It's just, no, that makes it even more unfortunate.
It is unfortunate. It's terribly unfortunate.
And nobody gets after the guy, I assume.
Yeah, that's the point.
Well,
because Japan has gotten better about gender equality, but they are not perfect. They are ranked 7 in the world, last I read. And we are, of course, several ranks above them. We're somewhere within the top, 2 or 3.
Not saying we're the best.
No, we're not. And, there's always gonna be some sort of, oh no, women don't get this thing the men get. I'm not here to argue that, but I am here to argue that, quite obviously, here's a situation where, in the guy's case, it's like, we don't care what he does in his private life, and in AKB48's case, it's like, she did a terrible thing, and we need to shame her. Now, granted, all they did was demote her, but don't you think demoting is already in and of itself, shaming, and then...
Well, yeah. But that's the thing, she signed a contract where it was within their rights to demote her because she breached the contract.
Absolutely, but I'm sure she had been in the group for so long, especially to get to Team A, that, you sign up when you're a little girl, basically. You don't know what you're doing when you're a little girl. I basically think at that point it's about time for her to live her life. She should be able to choose what she wants to do, but I can see how, if you've been with them for so long, that you maybe aren't ready to let go, or you still want to be part of it, or you still want to be relevant, or you...
Well, relevancy would be the bigger thing, because the thing I see most often with members of AKB48 is the fact that you stay with them, or even older groups like, say, Morning Musume, that you stay with them as long as you can until you make your break somewhere else. I forget their names precisely, but there were 2 sisters, both of whom were...
Minimoni?
Minimoni? No.
The 2 girls, they looked exactly like one another?
Specifically, Tomomi Itano, who just recently announced her graduation from AKB48. She and her sister were both featured in Kamen Rider Double. That was considered their big break. From there, they made a single called Love Wars. That single hit pretty high on the Oricon, their pop chart over there. And from there, that was their launch pad to get out of the group. So for this girl in particular, Mineishi, she hasn't had that opportunity yet, so it is in her best interest to stay with the group.
That is true. That, and on top of that, if you're not doing work like this, if you do need to graduate from AKB48, you can almost be considered old in Japan, because it's very quick and easy to suddenly be considered old.
Well, it's the same, such is the nature of showbiz.
That is true. I don't think I can run this into the ground anymore, so I need you to help me out with something else.
Well, I can always talk about what I have here.
Okay.
speaking of the young and keeping things relevant, this past Saturday, the first episode of Power Rangers Megaforce aired over on Nickelodeon.
You say young, but none of those actors are young. Come on.
Well, they're playing high schoolers.
Oh, they're playing high... Do they look like they're in high school to you?
Sorta.
No.
Well, come on. Did the original cast look
No.
like they were... Okay, alright, so getting to the point, a couple of people have asked me what I thought about it. Well, here's my thoughts. I was lucky enough to have watched it that same day, which is rare for most things nowadays with my schedule, but having sat through the whole thing and having sat through what they are adapting it from, which is the Super Sentai series Tenso Sentai Goseiger. First off, before I get into this, I have to say I have to come at it from two different points. One, as a fan of Power Rangers, and two, as a fan of Super Sentai. Some would say, well, isn't that the same thing? No, it is not.
They are wildly different. Despite the source material of the footage, they are wildly different things.
To begin with, just to give you some background, Tenso Sentai Goseiger, or hereby referred to as just Goseiger, is wildly different in the aspect of the 5 characters are not teenagers, they're actually angels. They are protectors of the planet who have been sent down by this basically godlike creature to watch over the planet, and the Yellow Ranger and the Black Ranger are actually brother and sister. And from there, we get your standard, fights, transformation, battle, and what have you. Over here, what is happening is that because of the extended run of Power Ranger Samurai going into Power Ranger Super Samurai, they've decided to start here with Megaforce and make this their anniversary series. Now, the interesting thing about this is that Saban may have actually run themselves into the ground a little bit, and I'll explain why. Over in Japan, Goseiger was the series before Pirate Sentai Gokaiger, which was their anniversary series. Had Saban not extended Samurai for an extra few months, the 2 anniversary series would have coincided with one another. Unfortunately, they're going to have to make a lot of difficult yet interesting changes, and some of which can be seen in the opening of Megaforce, which starts out with what is being referred to on both sides as the Legend War, which is basically all of the older Rangers that have come before fighting this group of villains that the characters currently in Megaforce have no idea who they are. Now, the thing about this footage is that it doesn't come from Goseiger itself. It comes from the series after it, which is the beginning of the celebration of the 35th year of Super Sentai. But the thing about this footage that's interesting is that if you're looking closely at this footage, and now anybody can do it, go on YouTube, go on Nick.com, stream it, you can see Rangers in there that you will not recognize. Like, what is this suit? What is... I don't recognize that Ranger. I don't recognize that design. Saban kept the footage from the original Japanese Legend War, which kept in about 10 years worth of Rangers that we have never seen over here. And there was talk that they were going to refilm this to keep it more US-centric, only with the Rangers from Mighty Morphin up till Samurai. And I understand this is probably the cheaper decision, but this is going to confuse some people.
Well, what you're basically saying, in a nutshell, is that what they have done with this, and what they've done with Power Rangers before in the past, is just about pulled a Macross, or what Macross be, a Robotech.
Yes.
In the combination of 2 different series that have basically nothing to do with one another.
Well, the thing is, it's a little easier here because, yes, it starts with the end of Goseiger. That's where that footage comes from. But the thing about it, not just there, but further on into the episode, when we get to even the transformations, quite blatantly, you still see the Japanese text on the cards that the American Rangers are using. Like, quite clearly, it still says, Gosei Pink, Gosei Yellow, Gosei Great. They've gone so far as to actually adopt the name of what we call the Megazord over here. That way they didn't have to change the text on the card. And it's interesting because, in conjunction with the show, Bandai is putting out this card game, which is just a Power Rangers action card game. You can pick it up at any Walmart for about $10. And
just the starter deck, and the little boosters were like $3 something.
$4, something like that. And these cards, very obviously, have English text.
They're completely different from what we're seeing in the show, though, because of that. Right?
In that weird respect, I like it. Because that's just the same as what they were giving fans 20 years ago. They sell you a Power Rangers morpher that says Power Rangers on it, but if you're looking at the screen, you see this weird writing that says Zeo Range, and I'm like, what's that? I remember back to 8-year-old me thinking, does that mean Power Rangers? And not knowing the original source material. So it's interesting to see that they're still, to this day, they haven't gone through the trouble of fixing that. But getting really to the heart of it, coming from the standpoint of a Power Ranger fan, very obviously, this first episode, Mission Starter Mega Mission, parallels episode 1 of Power Rangers, Day of the Dempster, almost to the letter. Very much throughout the episode, they're almost quoting exactly between the former and the latter. I reference Day of the Dumpster. Zordon speaking to Alpha about recruiting the Rangers. It's Rita. She's escaped. She's attacking the planet. Teleport to us 5 overbearing and over-emotional humans. And Alpha's like, no, not that. Teenagers.
Not teenagers.
And then over here, aliens have already landed on the Earth. This is Gosei speaking, Zordon's protege. It's time to assemble a new team of heroes. The most energetic and unstoppable group that exemplifies the human spirit. And then the new robot. Energetic and unstoppable, don't say it! Teenagers. It's almost exact.
And this happened multiple times throughout the show.
Throughout the episode. Jason in the original. Zordon gave us powers, let's use them. Troy in this new episode, the Red Ranger. Gosei gave us morphers, let's use them. At the end, Kimberly complaining, I don't know you guys, the outfits are cool, but my hair gets tangled up inside the helmet. The new Pink Ranger, Emma, I'm not so sure. The helmet messes up my hair. They're quoting exactly, pretty much, almost exactly. The same feel is there in the same parts. Now, some people will say, well, that's cheap. I say, no, this makes sense. This is what some people in a manner have been asking for, a reboot. Something for a new generation to latch onto.
I get it and all. At the same time, I've really come to realize that I'm too old to enjoy Power Rangers. I really am. I can enjoy the original Mighty Morphin for its nostalgia charm because I grew up with it, but as an adult, man, do I realize that this show is way out of my age range and I just don't enjoy it anymore. I can't. It just doesn't help that it very well be the nostalgia goggles talking, but I think that this cast is even less believable and even worse actors than the original cast we had.
Well, it's not like... I don't know if that's fair to say, because it's not like... I mean, you know, I'm happy for the cast that we had back in 1993, but they weren't exactly performing Shakespeare.
No, of course not. At the same time, though...
Well, no, at the same time, I will concede there were some actors that were less believable in this first episode than others.
Like both the ladies.
Well, the actresses both were, again, this is a kids show, as you so often have to remind me. But specifically, the Pink Ranger seemed just a tad better than the Yellow Ranger, whose lines were always read woodenly, like, what's going on? This can't be happening.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing. None of the characters in Mighty Morphin seemed like that, except maybe the Red Ranger.
Jason, just the same here. They played him straight as being the strong hero, the leader. I mean, they say as much about his character. Quite similarly paralleling here.
I don't think he was as good of an actor either. I think he should stick to his nice little completely naked modeling career.
Now, admittedly, a few of them have modeled before, and I will go on record as saying the Pink Ranger is pretty hot. But that says nothing, of course, about acting ability. Amy Jo Johnson was hot, as a kid, one of my first crushes, but at least she's still getting acting work and could prove she acted later on down the road.
She was by far, like, miles above better than current Pink and Yellow. Both of them are awful. Absolutely awful.
But then again, you have to cut them some slack because this is a show aimed at kids.
But only a little bit, though, when other children's shows, quite obviously 20 years ago, were doing it better.
Well, I'm not going to argue that they weren't doing it better back then. I agree with you on that.
I mean, the editing, I'm not saying the show overall was a better show. The editing was sloppy. They'd never done it before. It was awful. It was really awful. We ate it up.
I absolutely ate it up. I'm here to say I ate it up.
What I am saying is that at least the acting part of it, I can solidly say ours is better than theirs.
To say Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is better than Megaforce.
As far as the acting on a whole is concerned, yes. And I'm not even saying it's like, man, they sure did blow us out of the water. I mean, that was amazing. Like, somebody give them the
Emmy.
The Emmy right now. Like, no. Like, I'm not saying that. I am, however, saying, like, that crap smells a little bit less.
That is what I'm saying. I can understand that much. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm basically here to say I am giving Megaforce the respect that it's due for being an update, a reboot, an anniversary series. I am in no way saying it will ever take the spot in my heart that Mighty Morphin has, because that, for me, was the start of getting into Tokusatsu.
But no, I can agree that at the very least, like I said, I think I'm too old for Power Rangers now. However, for what it is and what it's trying to do, I can't knock it other than the bland wooden acting. I can't say anything about it. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do and exactly what it was doing 20 years ago, and that's okay. And kids these days should be happy to still have something of this sort on TV for them, because
I'm happy for them.
Nothing else is. Quite frankly, Power Rangers is of better quality than lots and lots and lots of other children's television programming currently.
Now, I've had to say this to a lot of people, but basically, I've watched Power Rangers less over the years, which is partly in having to, find out more about where it came from, why I got into Super Sentai as hard as I did. Because there's things they do over there that they don't necessarily touch as much over here. Things like Rangers dying. Nowadays people know this, but Mighty Morphin, Tommy loses his powers as the Green Ranger, but due to fan popularity, they resurrect him and keep him around for half a series, going into the next series longer than that Green Ranger suit should be around. In the original G-Ranger, the Green Ranger there dies, and he stays dead up until Gokaiger, and he had to, give powers to somebody, but he was dead. Dead was dead. You have other overarching plots like people getting families ripped out from under them. What's the most difficult thing we've had happen to a Power Ranger over here in 20 years? Kimberly fell off a balance beam and broke up with Tommy. That's about as hardcore as it got.
I didn't watch Power Rangers much farther than that.
You couldn't get over the breakup either?
I was sad.
I understand. I was there with you. I thought it was gonna last. I really did.
I really thought those two kids were gonna make it.
Ooh, if I had a quarter for every time I had to say that. and I mean that.
These cards that came out, right?
Yeah.
Like, these are some cards.
A little bit more explanation on these cards. Some people will see them as, they're just a tie-in thing, or they're just something that works with the morpher they have this year.
Kinda.
But the thing about them is, again, going back to Japan, where the source comes from, at the same time that Go-Sager came out, about that time period, an arcade game was put out called Dice-O, which was basically this, I forget the name of the game we got over here that had the dinosaur
We
cards.
had several different e-reader card games. There's a Yu-Gi-Oh! E-reader card game that exists currently, and some places might still have them, but we had a dinosaur-themed one. We had Mushi King, which was fighting different insects with one another, mostly beetles. We had Love and Berry, which was these magical dress-up witches, and then you could make them dance fight. It was kind of stupid, but most of them all have a rock paper scissors sort of a theme. You scan these cards in this arcade machine. Well, first you can actually get the arcade machine to give you a random card.
Right.
Then you use that card in the machine to play the game, either against a friend or just against the machine. It's basically this really cheap, silly, stupid rock, paper, scissors game. Different games have different elements, like this one apparently gives you the ability to boost your level up to a max level of 6, hence the dice part of it.
Well, the thing that I was trying to get across is that there was an arcade game that went with these cards. You would scan the cards, and you could watch the Power Rangers, as we would call them over here, or your favorite Super Sentai, fight it out amongst each other, and then use their Megazords against one another. The thing about it over here is that they're selling these cards. We don't have the arcade game, and thus we are given these silly rules that come with the starter deck and this app that you can download to your Android or to your iPhone.
Well, if you don't have the app, it does come with dice.
Right.
So you do have the option of that, that randomness that comes with rolling a dice, and so the cards have 6 different levels going down the right-hand side of it, level 1 to level 6 max. Each one, of course, having progressively higher battle stat numbers. So you have dice, so you can really quickly and easily just roll a die and get your answer as to what level you're attacking at. But what you really want to do is try and emulate the arcade machine as best as you can by taking the card, scanning it in this particular app, and then a piece of footage will play that's from the original arcade machine. And then it'll randomly choose which level you've ended up with. It's far quicker to roll the dice, though, because I used this app, okay, and my god, it just takes forever to load just the camera part so that it can scan these stupid barcodes. It's so not worth it to use that app.
The only other nitpicky thing I will say is that these cards are so, they're not even printed on regular card stock. I feel like I'm gonna bend these things just by looking at them. They're so flimsy. But, really...
Yeah, I feel like I could sneeze on them and they'd just be tissue thin and just
But admittedly,
apart.
I'm not collecting them specifically for the game. I'm collecting them to make noises in the morpher once I find one and purchase it.
Well, good luck to you.
And, well, that's my nerding out on Megaforce. I know that took a while, but hey, speaking of nerds... moving on, we're going to go ahead.
Your segue is the least smooth and the most painful to listen to I could possibly think of.
I'm not getting paid for this. King of the Nerds episode 3. Now we're going to talk about that. So, yes, this next episode...
Which, by the way, episode 4 has totally aired by the time this has gone up, so...
Right, so, whatever, moving on. Again, I find myself becoming more and more annoyed with this Genevieve contestant. She very much reminds me of certain people I will again say that I would stay away from at a convention. She keeps singing. It's not a contest anymore, and she's just, "Hi everybody, how are we doing?" And no, you're too happy.
You mean like the "Hello Fellow Crackheads" incident?
Yes, yeah. If you want to bring that up, yes, it's quite similar.
Oh, really? I mean, there's not much to elaborate on, and I really don't think that we should elaborate too terribly much on it for the sake of time. But yeah, with random strangers just coming up to you and very cheerfully asking you, or saying to you, "Hello, fellow crackheads." I mean, there's really not more to that story.
No.
There's really not. It's not welcomed and it's annoying. Please go away.
Exactly, and that's the way she feels every time I see her on screen. But beyond that, this episode was kind of weird in that there was a couple of unexplainable things, namely the two costumes that get brought up during the contest. One, Brandon is dressed as Toad.
Well, let's get this straight. This is not a costume contest.
No, this wasn't a costume.
This competition.
This was a Nerf war.
Because the cosplay competition was the episode
Last
before,
episode, yeah.
and it had nothing to do with actual costumes. I'm sorry. Like, not actual character-related costumes. So one guy, this Brandon guy, is dressed up for some reason as Toad from the Mario games, okay?
And they never explain it.
They don't explain it. He's just like, I feel like going down as Toad today, and then what was other
Ivan.
dude? Ivan, dressed as
Chicken Panda.
Like, what even is that, and why?
I have never, I'm going on record right now saying I have never heard of Chicken Panda. I don't know what it is. I get that he was trying to taunt the other team, but it was just so confusing. It's like why not just call them dicks?
Why not
just make fun of them?
Was it specifically to taunt the other team? Because part of me was even like, I feel like you just went down there for the hell of doing it. Like,
yeah,
you didn't actually have a reason for doing this. I don't. Just what is this?
Now,
so these two teams are split up, right? They gotta fly this really nifty, like, we've looked at this thing before.
This nifty $300 flying 4-fan contraption through these gates.
Through gates and fire and hoops, and not have the other team shoot it down with Nerf weapons. And so the competition goes in either team's favor on and off. But, like, when we were saying earlier that it sort of looked like this game is potentially rigged to create more drama.
Specifically, we're referring to Virgil, who was the last run on the blue team. And you're given 3 minutes to accrue as many points as you can flying this contraption through these gates. For at least 2 minutes out of the 3,
no, for at least 1 minute, I think. And that's a lot of time anyway.
Well, yeah, he just can't seem to get his contraption to get much altitude.
He just can't get it up.
Yeah, I was trying not to say that, but yeah, he couldn't. And then at the last possible, like, what is it, the last 40 seconds, 30 seconds, something like that, he manages to get, like, all these points and top out. And
win it for the whole team. Like, I really don't understand. Like, granted, it sort of is showing him they've edited it together to look like he was struggling really hard with learning how to make it function. This thing is controlled by an app used on an iPad.
Right.
And, really he had learned, it looked like. It looked like he learned to figure out how to drive and maneuver this contraption. And then after a minute goes by, and you can't get the thing to hover more than maybe at the most 1 to 2 feet off the ground, and, like, how long does it take before you figure out, oh, I'm just laying my thumb down on the wrong thing?
Yeah.
Like, no, and then he not only figures out, oh, I was just doing that wrong, and then it's like, doo-doo-doo, I'll go through every single last little thing and then not get my thing burned, and then as further victory, just be like, oh, 1 second to go, I guess I'll just land it right in the fire to look cool.
That I think was an accident, though, but it's like, it's weird, like, I find it hard to believe that, you know, you're fluttering there on the ground, and then in the last 30 seconds you become the frickin' Rocketeer with this thing.
So there's that, and then eventually getting to the actual nerd-off.
Right, between Brandon and Danielle.
Brandon, who, you know, this whole time, I actually think dude's a bro.
Yeah, you know, I totally agree.
I would hang out with this dude on a normal, average, regular basis. He seems very normal. He seems like he's not a plant, I don't believe. He seems like he's legitimately there and knows what he's doing and is the kind of nerd that I would hang out with and doesn't have an irritating personality. Granted, you can't really tell that because it's a reality TV show, as I stated earlier in this program.
But even then, he seemed like a genuinely nice guy. He had a good head on his shoulders. He figured out right away, okay, remote control car competition, I better go practice for a while. I know it's got a bad turn ratio. He figured out the gimmick really early.
And yet,
we get to the full-size competition, and they're not using remote-controlled cars, they're using remote-controlled golf carts. And he's pitted against Danielle, whose cart, right at the beginning, when they both start, Brandon's keeps veering to the left really sharply, and Danielle seems to have normal control over it. And it's like, how do you not pick up on how bad this thing is turning really easily?
He even states, like, he seemed to understand, because he stated, yeah, I could feel after a while that there was, like, a delay of about a second or two, and it was really annoying, but I figured out that there was a delay, and yet he was still having a problem, and because of, what's the job he holds? He's some sort of an engineer or something, right? I'm trying to remember exactly. But he's a very intelligent person, and I would think he's a neuroscientist. I would think that being able to figure out that there's a slight delay, he would be able to compensate for it. And earlier in the program, Danielle had to do that same little flight maneuvering task as well. And under extreme pressure, she
caved.
She kind of ate it, and she caved, and she freaked out really hard. So the show would paint her.
Right.
But, that's why it's just really hard to... perhaps we can't really trust this reality show to give us the true beef on which nerd is, in fact, the best nerd, because it doesn't feel like the playing field is actually level. Because I very strongly feel like they're trying to force drama to happen.
But that of course being the nature of a reality show. But the unfortunate thing is, getting back to the core of why we're doing this in the first place, is that it's painting a bad picture of people who share these interests.
Well, maybe you can further elaborate on it, because I can see people that I would not necessarily hang out with.
Well, no, it's the fact that the one, if there was, I'm not saying for certain whether there was or whether there wasn't, but the one guy who seems the most on the level about the things he likes got kicked off, and the people who are the loudest and most annoying are still there.
Reality television will always do that. And it was sort of similar in The Tester, in that it was always episode 3, where the fan favorite, the one that got voted in, got out. They don't want the fan favorite there. They only want them so far as to keep ratings. Past that, if they're not going to help create drama, then they don't want them. Which could partially be a good reason why, if there was any rigging going on, that they would rig it to have Danielle kept, because she was being very, very emotional about being up for Nerd Off at all.
So are you saying she was playing that up to stay on?
Either she was playing it up, which perhaps she knew how to do after having been on a reality program before, or they saw that she could be volatile and then made it so
the deck
that
in her favor.
Yeah.
Well, that sucks.
I'm just saying, it's hard to say either way, but you can't trust reality television to give you an accurate picture.
No, because
anyway.
I wanted him to win. I really did. And, partly the only reason I would want to watch the next episode is because they've got Kevin Smith on there.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. They got you by the balls because of certain other elements, but it's really not for the game anymore. It was in the beginning.
It was, honestly.
When it was about chess, and it looked like all these people were like, you're kind of proving me wrong in my assumption that they might not all be nerds. I actually think these people are all nerdy on some level. But now there's less and less of a reason for me to want to keep talking about it in every episode.
Right.
So
maybe we'll talk about it next week. Maybe we won't.
It might be time to change it up.
It might be time to change it. But that pretty much covers our topics for the evening.
Yeah, man, we ran almost too long this time.
No, we're still pretty good.
So thanks very much for listening, you guys. I tell you what, give us a follow on our separate Twitter accounts. Mine, of course, being at Mars Girl Prod.
And mine at Josh Knight First.
And we'll keep giving you updates about when we're going to do other live events. We want to get back to our Go Lion Voltron stream at some point
definitely
in the
we
future.
want to get back to that as soon as possible.
But for sure, because we started that Phoenix Wright live dub, we want to give you guys the opportunity to listen in on us. Actually, hopefully, I'll have up on the YouTube channel at least just a clip or two of how that live voice acting went, so that you can get a feel for what you missed. But if you want, the thing should actually be up in its entirety over on my Twitch channel, and that's twitch.tv/MarsGirl. So, until next week, I am Mars Girl.
I'm Josh Knight the First.
So, thanks for hanging out with us again, and we'll see you next week. Night, guys.
Beyond the Black Rims.